It was raining the morning she knocked. Soft rain, the kind that makes the rosemary lean toward the kitchen window and turns the street to silver. The kettle hummed. I held my blue mug with both hands and watched my children draw suns with too many lines. The house smelled like toast and clean laundry. Steady, kind, ordinary. The front door clicked with that small, polite sound it makes when someone tries not to wake a house. I wiped my hands on a towel and opened it. A woman stood there, wet hair tucked behind one ear, a boy at her side with a backpack, and eyes too much like my husband's. She held a folder against her chest like a shield. Her voice shook, but it did not crack. "Is Ethan home?" she asked. Then, after a breath that changed the shape of the morning, "He's my husband." For a second, the world stayed quiet as if it didn't know what to do. The kettle clicked off. A crown rolled off the table and tapped the floor, small and clear. The boy shifted his weight and looked down at his shoes. Behind me, my daughter laughed at something on the paper that used to feel simple. I let them into the porch out of the rain. I closed the inner door so the children would not see everything at once. I made tea because that's what my hands know. The woman's name was Mara. The boy's was Theo. She slid the folder across the little porch table without drama. Birth certificate, photos, a rent contract with Ethan's name, a simple ring on her finger. No shouting, no threats, just paper and a quiet face that had learned to live with truth. I called my husband. "There's someone here to see you," I said. He said nothing for a long 4 seconds, then everything in his breathing changed. "I'm on my way," he said. The line went dead. Through the glass, the garden held still. When he walked in, rain on his shoulders, our hallway turned into a river with 2 banks. He looked at Mara. He looked at Theo. He looked at me. He opened his mouth and closed it. All the stories he had told us both sat up like stray cats, hungry and loud. I did not scream. I did not throw anything. I poured 3 cups and set them down with steady hands. "We will talk when the room can hold it," I said. I sent my children to the living room to build a fort that could take a hit. I opened the back door and felt the cool air on my face. In the garden, the old metal fire bowl waited under the oak, wet with rain. In that quiet, with rain at the glass and 3 cups on the table, I made a plan. I would not break the dishes. I would not whisper lies back. I would set his words on paper and put them where they belonged. I would light a small, safe fire in our garden and burn the stories that had kept us all in the dark, while both families watched them turn to ash. Not for revenge, for light. We live on a quiet street, where the mornings smell like tea and wet leaves. The rosemary by our kitchen window has learned our names. It leans toward the glass when it rains and straightens when the sun returns, like a small brave thing doing its job. The door closes with a soft click. The kettle hums. My blue mug sits on the second shelf, left of the yellow one the kids fight over on Saturdays. My name is Nora. I like steady things. Lists on the fridge held by magnets that look like lemons. A binder with tabs for our life. Mortgage, utilities, school, health. I work at the clinic front desk. I see the faces of people trying to be brave at 10 in the morning, and I say, "The nurse will see you soon," in a voice that makes the room exhale. At home, I keep soup on Wednesdays, clean towels in the hall, and the door locked but never loud. Ethan and I met in a way that felt like a small movie with no dramatic music. A bus, a broken umbrella, a laugh that came easily. He had a way of making strangers feel like the room had turned the light up just for them. He sold things for a living. Experiences, he called them. Conferences and packages and ideas that needed a person who could say, "Imagine," without sounding foolish. He traveled. Not always. Enough to have a suitcase that knew the airport by heart. We married on a cloudy afternoon with short vows and warm bread. My mother slipped me her ring dish with a grin. "For when you need dough," she said, "and for when you need a place to set your worries for a minute." We bought our house the year after. Our names are both on the deed. I remember how the pen felt in my hand and the way my breath steadied when I saw our letters together on a line that meant roof, windows, door, garden, hopeful paint. Our daughter Sophie came with bright eyes and a laugh that surprised her, then us, then everyone around her. Then arrived 3 years later with hair that stuck up like he had been in a wind only he could feel. The living room learned to hold forts made out of blankets and bravery. The kitchen learned to survive flour on every surface at least once a month. The backyard learned the sound of small soccer balls and bigger ideas. We are the kind of family that kept little rituals because they hold the day. Shoes on the mat, homework at the table, a Friday dance to one song we never changed. Ethan read books in silly voices. He built a tree swing with a knot he watched 3 videos to get right. He knew where Sophie's missing sneaker was more often than I did. He held Ben on his shoulders at the fall parade and did not complain when his neck ached after. He showed up for parent nights and sat with me in small chairs meant for small people, listening with a seriousness that made me glad. He was also a man who liked to be needed in other rooms. The travel returned and left in waves. Just a few days, he'd say, and bring back hotel soap and stories of airports with moving walkways that still surprised him. He sent photos of sunrises from places that did not have our street. He texted, "Landing," and "Miss you," and it felt many days like the truth. There were signs, if I draw circles around them now with a pen that knows the ending. A second gym bag in the trunk he said was for a late class he never liked. A calendar entry that said dinner, client, on a Wednesday we had planned pancakes and a movie. A new credit card I did not recognize, just for points. A second phone for work emergencies that buzzed face down on the counter while he showered. A receipt in the car for 2 cappuccinos and a slice of lemon cake at 4 in the afternoon on a day he said he was in another city. But I am not a detective. I am a woman who prefers windows open a finger's width and the sound of rain on a good roof. I filed the odd things under busy season and he is trying, because most of the time that felt fair. Our friends would say we were solid. Our neighbor, Mrs. Chang, would bring oranges over the fence and tell me in her soft voice, "You keep a good home." Ethan mowed in straight lines, like a man who wanted order in his hands. I planted rosemary because it forgives you if you forget it for a week. We were not fancy. We were steady. There was a year before Ben when everything felt gray at the edges. Ethan's job changed hands and suddenly travel meant gone. We had a talk about a pause, the kind people have when they're too tired to fix the whole world but too stubborn to let it break. He slept at his brother's for 4 nights to think. He came back with flowers from the grocery store and a careful plan to be around more. We tucked that year behind a curtain and kept going. We did not know there were things behind that curtain that would find their way back to the kitchen. I kept our paper life neat, because neat helps when storms come. The binder held the mortgage schedule, underlined wherever I paid a little extra. A copy of the deed with both our names. The insurance policy with emergency numbers written in thick pen on a sticky note. A photocopy of our wills, simple as bread. If this, then that. I'm not romantic about paper. I like it because it holds people to promises when voices shake. Our days had smells. Ginger key, clean laundry, wet socks by the door.
the lemon cleaner I used on Fridays when the week felt sticky, the metal smell of the swing after rain, Ethan's cologne on the blue scar I wore in winter, the total smell of a house that forgives small mistakes and makes big hearts bigger. When I think back now, I remember a handful of quiet moments that tried to tell me the story I did not want to hear. A woman at a work party, smiling too long at a joke that wasn't funny, who watched Ethan watch the room. A message that popped up on his second phone while he slept, my hand on the charger, the screen blooming stubbornly with a first name and a heart I did not put there. A birthday he missed because a flight was canceled, but his tan line at the wrist did not look like airport light. A Saturday morning when he came back from a long run with new mud on his shoes that did not match the path by the river. I am not proud of the way I explained those moments to myself. I gave grace because I wanted it to be grace, not a blindfold. I chose steady because steadiness had saved me before, from grief, from loneliness, from the wildness of life when you don't set a table and pour tea and open a window and tell the truth in short words. I thought if I held the house steady, the wind would remember how to be kind. Sometimes wind is just wind.
The morning from the porch and the hook did not feel like the day everything broke. It felt like the day light came into a room that had been pretending the curtains were beautiful while they were only heavy. Mara wore a sweater the color of wet leaves. Theo stood with one foot on the tile, one on the mat, like a person who might run if someone shouted. She did not shout. She placed the folder down. Papers with Ethan's name and neat official letters. Photos of birthdays that were not ours. A child's first day of school with a backpack we had not bought. Rent stubs for a small apartment across town near the park with the ice cream stand. A ring on her hand, so simple and sure it looked like she thought no one would ever ask it to prove anything. I told my children to build the strongest fort in the world. Use all the blankets, I said, and they did, because building is what children do when grown-ups are holding the air very still. I called him because I have always called him when a thing in the house needed his hands. There's someone here to see you, I said. The silence on the line was a new shape I recognized in my bones. He arrived with rain on his shoulders and that wide look men get when the road they thought they were on becomes gravel. He said Mara's name with the softness of someone who has said it in kitchens that are not mine. He said Theo's name like it had lived in his mouth for years. We did not have a storm in the hallway. We had 3 cups of tea on a table and 2 families breathing in a small room. I saw Ethan look at the blue mug and the way it fit in my hand. I saw him look at the photo in the folder of him holding another child's hand on a street with a different tree. I watched his face try on the story he had told himself and then take it off because it did not fit anymore. Mara and I are not the same woman. We have different sweaters and different ways of standing in hard rooms, but we are cut from a cloth that knows how to keep a house when it needs keeping. She did not call me names. She did not make a scene. She showed me receipts and a birth certificate and the face of her boy. She said, I didn't know about you until I did. She said, I thought he would choose me before he married anyone else. She said, I can't carry this alone anymore. Her voice was tired and clean. I thought of all the small doors behind which this life had been living, late meetings, client dinners, this one trip I can't cancel, don't wait up. I thought of the way we teach our children to say thank you, to share, to tell the truth, to come home. I thought of the rosemary by the sink and how it keeps standing in cold and heat, forgiving and stubborn. I felt something in me stand up. We have a fire bowl under the oak in the garden, old metal, blackened from summers of marshmallows and late stories. We keep sand in a bucket for safety, a hose nearby, a circle of stones like a ring around a promise. When the rain pauses, we light it for warmth more than heat. We sit with our legs tucked under and watch small fire do its honest work. In the soft space between tea and shouting, I saw what I needed. Not a fight in a hallway, not whispers that poison rooms, not a courtroom that would turn our children into spectators to a game they never asked to join. I wanted the truth to burn where it belonged, on paper, outside, under sky, in a bowl that had held our stories for years. I wanted both families to stand where we could see each other, not from corners, but from the same piece of earth. I wanted his lies to turn into ash, where we could all watch them stop taking up space. I did not know yet what names were on all the papers. I did not know whether Ethan had signed marriage certificates twice or once and then promises. I did not know where he slept on the nights he said late and travel ensued. I only knew that whatever this was, I would not let it steal my children's beds or our house's kind door. I would use paper and light, not knives. I would say, bring all the stories you told, put them in the bowl. I would set them on fire and let the rain's sweet air carry the smoke away. Before that day could arrive, there were things to do. Protect the house, hold the children's routines like a good rope, call a lawyer who knows how to be kind and firm at the same time. Call my friend Nadia and say, come sit in my kitchen, bring your listening. Open the binder to the tab that says house and slide another tab behind it, plan. Put 2 simple words there, safe, fire. I don't know if there is a right way to discover your life has been cut in two and stitched back together under other people's hands. I only know I wanted to be the woman my mother raised, a person who starts with tea, tells the truth in short words, opens the window of fingers width, and does not let a lie sit at her table and eat. That morning in the porch, with the kettle's gentle hiss and the rain making the street shine, I looked at Ethan and then at Mara, and then the boy whose eyes matched his father's and who kept watching my hands like he wanted to trust them. I said, we will not talk in the hallway. We will talk where the air is bigger. I looked at my children building a fort and called out, make it strong. And they said, we are. I put my palm on the cool glass of the back door and felt the garden breathe. That is the shape of us before the flame. One house, one porch, 2 cups that went empty, a folder with paper, a boy with a backpack, 2 children under blankets in a castle, a man who had split himself and did not know how to become one person again, a woman who brought truth in a folder, and me, with my blue mug and my binder and my stubborn rosemary, choosing how this story would be told from here. I did not ask questions in the porch. I set 3 cups on the small table and watched the steam soften the space between us. We will not do this in the hallway, I said. Sophie and Ben are building a fort. We will not break it with loud voices. Mara nodded. Theo looked at the rain where it made lines on the glass. Come back at 4, I told Ethan. We will talk at the table. You will bring all the papers. Rent, phone, whatever you have already made real. We won't guess. He opened his mouth. I lifted a hand. Not now. Mara stood, the folder back in her arms. I will be here, she said. Her voice held careful dignity, the kind that keeps a spine straight. Theo pushed his backpack strap higher. Thank you for the tea, he said, a good boy's manners showing up even in a room where truth had set down a heavy bag. When the door closed with that kind click, the house took a breath with me. I walked to the living room and peered into the fort. 2 bright faces looked back at me, proud. It's strong, Sophie said. It can hold. I know it can, I said, brushing hair from her forehead. I'm going to make tea. Want some hot chocolate for your fort? They nodded like the world still made sense. I went to the kitchen and filled a small pot, my hands moving in a rhythm my heart could follow. At noon, I called Nadia. I need your listening, I said. She arrived with a quiet face and a bag that always seems to hold the right things. A notebook, a box of tissues, 2 lemon bars wrapped in a napkin. We sat at the table. I told her about the porch, the names, the folder,
the boy. She held her mug with both hands and did not interrupt. "I want the truth in this house," I said. "I will not pick up a hammer. I will not whisper poison into corners. I want to protect the kids and the house and my own heart." She nodded. "Then you need light," she said. "Paper, people who can help, and a ritual that marks the line." "A fire," I said, and she waited. "In the garden, paper only. Bring the lies, the phrases, the old small gods he fed, and burn them where we can all see. No shouting, no name-calling, tea on a tray. Hose nearby, sand, Mr. Lopez in his yard sweeping twice as long as needed." She smiled a small, sad smile. "I love that your plan has a hose and a neighbor," she said. "Call a lawyer today, protect the house and the kids. Then make your fire." After she left, I opened the binder. I added a tab behind house and called it plan. I drew 3 lines. Kids, tell the truth they can carry. Keep routines. School counselor. House, lawyer, documents, passwords, bills in my reach. Heart, therapy, tea, sleep, safe fire. I dialed the number for the lawyer a friend had given me years ago when we redid our wills. The office was above the bakery. I could almost smell the sugar through the phone. The assistant listened and gave me an appointment at 2. She said, "Bring your binder, bring your calm." I told Mrs. Chang over the fence while I walked to my car. She held 2 oranges, and her eyes did the kind thing older eyes do when they see a storm above a young woman and can't pull the cloud off, but can hand her a raincoat. "I am here," she said. "I will be outside," she added, as if she had always planned to sweep her stoop at 4 on a day with rain. The lawyer's office smelled like paper and coffee. She wore a cardigan with a tiny snag and had a voice like a solid chair. She said, "Tell me." I told her in short words: husband, folder, other home, kids, house. She said, "We will be kind. We will be firm." She wrote notes in tidy lines. "First, the house. Your name is on the deed. Good. You can ask for exclusive use for now if you separate. Judges like children to stay in their beds. Keep paying the mortgage. Don't move out." "I won't," I said. "This house is their map." "Second," she went on, "money. Check accounts. Freeze any you don't recognize. Move your pay into your own account. Change passwords. Document any transfers you did not authorize. Do not drain anything. This is not about punishment. It's about stability." "Third," she said, "kids. You tell them a version of the truth that fits in their hands. The other boy, he is not a rival. He is a child. Keep adult words in adult mouths." "Fourth, time. You can ask for a temporary schedule. Dinner at his place, no overnights yet. Calm handoffs, neutral places. Bring your friend to the first 2. "Fifth, your ritual," she said. She looked up then with eyes that knew what rituals can do. "You can do that. I don't write those papers. I bless them with my head. Bring your hose. Bring your light." I copied her list into my binder in my plain hand. She slid a short letter across the desk. This says, "For now, Claire has temporary possession of the house. Ethan will not move items or change locks. He will not remove the children without your agreement. It is not a threat. It is a boundary." She smiled at my face. It is good to have boundaries written down. I went home through air that felt washed. I sat at the table and made a second pot of tea. I copied our bank accounts and circled 2 I had not seen. I called the bank and asked to put alerts on them. "We can text you for any purchase over $20, the woman said. "Yes," I said, "do that." I moved my pay. I changed passwords in a slow, careful way that made my hands steady. At 3, I sat with Sophie and Ben. We made hot chocolate in the fort, and I crawled in with them, my knees bumping their knees.
Families come in different shapes, I began, because simple words carry heavy things better. Some are one house, some are two. Some are two houses near each other. We are a one-house family. That will not change. They watched me with trusting faces. I went on. Your dad made choices without telling me. There is a boy. His name is Theo. He is kind. He is part of our story now in a different way. We will not pretend it away. We will not break our house into pieces. You are safe. Sophie's face folded and then unfolded. Will Dad come to pancake night? She asked. Not this week, I said. He will come to dinner at a restaurant sometimes. You will come back here to sleep. Your beds are your beds. Then asked, does he like soccer? And I said, maybe, and we left it there. At 4, Ethan stood in our doorway with Rain on his shoulders and a stack of papers. Mara and Theo came a minute later, calm and damp. Nadia sat at the end of the table with a mug like she had always belonged there. Mrs. Chang swiped her porch with her broom. Mr. Lopez pretended to water his rosemary with a cup of Rain. 2 neighbors loving a house by standing near it. We sat at the table like decent people. I put out the good napkins because I needed to tell myself this was a grown-up day. I put the binder down next to the folder. We will tell the truth in short words. We will not accuse when we can describe. We will make a plan, and then, on Saturday, when the sky is kind, we will burn your lies on paper in the garden. Ethan looked like a man who had swallowed a coin. He said, Nora. His voice was too soft. Mara did not touch him. Theo watched my hands again. He trusts hands, I thought. Good. I took a breath. What did you promise her? I asked. Them. Without me. He swallowed. That I would leave, he said. After the new contract at work, after next Christmas, after Sophie's play, after Ben learned to read, after. How long? I asked. 7 years, he said. His eyes closed for a moment like he wanted darkness. Mara spoke, her hands flat on the table. She married me in a small ceremony in my aunt's garden. No papers, a ring, a cake. I did not know he had already had vows. I know now. She lifted her chin. I will not let my boy feel like a secret anymore. I wrote 7 in the notebook because numbers have their own quiet power. I wrote garden vows to remind myself not to argue the word. I wrote no papers because legal and true are not always twins. Where do you sleep? I asked. Not from cruelty, from mapping. At her place, he said, nodding toward Mara. 2 nights a week, the short trips, the late meetings, the canceled flights, the gym, the run. What do you use? I asked, meaning money. He understood. A card in my name, a separate account, sometimes the joint when it was lean. He did not try to smooth it. Good. How many people know? I asked. He looked at his hands. He said, 2 from work, my brother. My mouth tightened. Not your mother. He shook his head. No. I turned to Mara. Have you told him that this will end? I asked. She nodded. He moved his things out on Monday. I told him he could see Theo at the park. He can bring pizza on Fridays. He cannot live in both houses and call that love. Something in my chest loosened a notch. Okay, I said. I slid the lawyer's letter across the table. For now, the house stays with the kids and me. You will not sleep here. You will not take things. You will not change locks or accounts. We will make a plan for dinners that feel steady. We will not talk to the kids like they are your pastor or your judge. He nodded, a man underwater reaching for the surface. He said, okay, I will do this.
Saturday, I said. 4, both families. Adults in the garden, kids on the porch with hot chocolate, papers in the fire bowl, hose and sand. We will write the lies on cards and burn them. We will say what they were so we can stop saying them again. It feels dramatic, Ethan said weakly. It is practical, I said. Ritual helps a brain stop looping. I will not let your words keep walking around my kitchen like they own the place. They will lose their shape in front of the people they hurt. You will be quiet while they do. Mara nodded, a small, fierce light in her eyes. I will bring the rent stubs, she said. Theo looked at her, then at me, then at the rain. Will there be marshmallows? He asked. The question broke something gentle open in the room. Yes, I said, surprising myself. After the papers, we will let the fire be for a kind thing too. After they left, the door clicked softly. The house, kind as ever, settled. Nadia stayed and helped me set out a bowl for cards, a pen, the hose in its coil, the sand bucket near. We tested the lighter and set it away. We moved the fire bowl into the center of the flagstones with the oak overhead like a wide, old witness. I made a list of the phrases that had lived in my house like mice in walls. Late meeting, client dinner, gym, run, flight canceled, second phone for work, points card, don't wait up, you worry too much, stop being dramatic, imagine what we could have, be patient, after. I wrote each line on a separate index card with plain handwriting like labels in a pantry. I set them in a stack like a deck of clean truth. I left space for more that might come. I called the school counselor and left a message. Our family changed shape, I said on the line. If you see quiet, it's okay. If you see questions, I am here. If you could be a kind place at 9 a.m. on Monday, we would be grateful. I called a therapist. The office smelled like paper and plants. She wore shoes that did not make noise. Ritual is good, she said. It gives your nervous system a story it can put its hands on. But remember, burn the lies, not the people. After, the air will feel better and the work will still be there. That is okay. That is honest. I wrote her words into my plan tab. Burn lies, not people. Air better. Work, still there. Friday at dinner, I told Sophie and Ben we would have hot chocolate on the porch on Saturday and watch the fire bowl from a small distance. I said, we are going to put words we don't need anymore into the fire, like when we throw away food that went bad. We say goodbye to it, and we do not let it make us sick. Can I write one? Sophie asked. Her face looked less worried than last week and more like a girl who knows she can lean. Yes, I said. She took a card and wrote very slowly, tongue peeking out, "Don't wait up." She handed it to me like a precious thing. Saturday came with a pale sky and a clean wind. The garden smelled like rosemary and rain left behind. I set chairs at a distance. Not in a circle, not in a row, just in a shape that felt like people could sit without pointed elbows. I set a small table with tea. I set a larger table on the porch with hot chocolate for 3 children. I tied the hose in a loop that loosened easily. I shook the sand bucket to feel the weight. Mrs. Chang stood at her fence with her broom. She did not sweep. She watched the way a neighbor watches to be sure a good plan stays good. Mr. Lopez watered the basil as if basil always needed watering on a Saturday at 4. The oak stood above us like a great, quiet ceiling. At 5 to 4, Nadia arrived with a bag of marshmallows and a steady face. "I will stand by the hose," she said. I laughed, then I didn't. "Thank you," I said. Mara and Theo came at 4 sharp. Theo wore a clean shirt like he had been told to dress for church. He looked at the fire bowl in a way that said he had never seen one outside of a beach. Ethan walked in on the minute with his hands empty. I handed him a stack of blank cards and a pen. "We do not say everything," I said. "We say enough. We write the lies. We read them out loud once. We put them in the bowl. We light them. We do not throw anything else in. We do not throw anyone in. We do not swear. We do not spit. We do not make the neighbors turn away. We make the air honest. Then we make marshmallows." Sophie and Ben sat on the porch steps with their mugs. Theo sat in between them with his, shoulders hunched the way boys' shoulders hunch when they do not want to be asked how they feel. He looked at the cards in Ethan's hand like a student who is not sure he will pass the test. "Why are we doing this?" Ethan asked, as if he needed to practice asking before he answered. I looked at him and said what I had written in my plan tab. "So the lies stop walking around our house like they own the place, so our mouths know how to say other things." We sat in quiet for 10 minutes. We wrote. The wind moved through the rosemary and made it give up its scent like a good idea. I could hear a bird somewhere above us that sounded like it was laughing at a secret. At 4:15 we stood. I held the first card. "Late meeting," I read. The words sounded small in the open air. I set it in the bowl. I held the lighter over the edge and let a corner go to brown, then gold, then orange. The flame licked and then accepted. It felt like handing something you never wanted to carry to a place that knows what to do with it.
Mara read the next. "Client dinner," she said, her mouth a firm line after. She set the card on the first. It curled like a leaf in late fall. She stepped back with dignity. Theo watched with his jaw set. Ethan held one. He stared at it. He looked at me. I made my face a window. He read, barely above a breath, "Don't wait up." His voice broke and held. He set it in the bowl with a hand that shook and did not spill the truth. We went on. Gym, run, flight canceled, second phone for work, points card, work wife. It was nothing. She needed me. It was just this once. It will not happen again. After we pay off the car, after the big contract, after. They burned one by one, tiny letters curling into a soft black. The smoke was thin and pale, the kind that does not dig into lungs the way cooking smoke does. Nadia squeezed the hose once to make sure the water ran like a live thing. The sand sat there, patient. I held the last card. It said only "imagine" in my clean hand, a word he had used to sell strangers what he could not bring home. I looked at my children on the porch, and at the boy with my husband's eyes, and at the woman who had carried a life with grace, and I said no out loud to that word. I put it in the bowl. The fire, small and sane, did its work. We stood until the paper became ash, and the ash became a gray that did not try to turn back into white. We watched, not like a show, like a witness, like people at a river watching a tree float past and out of their story. The oak watched too and did not give an opinion. When the fire quieted, we let it rest. I brought out marshmallows because I had promised and because ritual needs sweetness too. The kids laughed at how the marshmallows caught quick and then went soft. Theo smiled in a way that made my eyes sting. Ethan held one over. He stared at it.
He looked at me. I made my face a window. He read, barely above a breath, "Don't wait up." His voice broke and held. He set it in the bowl with a hand that shook and did not spill the truth. We went on. Gym, run, flight canceled, second phone for work, points card, work wife. It was nothing. She needed me. It was just this once. It will not happen again. After we pay off the car, after the big contract, after. They burned one by one, tiny letters curling into a soft black. The smoke was thin and pale, the kind that does not dig into lungs the way cooking smoke does. Nadia squeezed the hose once to make sure the water ran like a live thing. The sand sat there, patient. I held the last card. It said only "imagine" in my clean hand, a word he had used to sell strangers what he could not bring home. I looked at my children on the porch, and at the boy with my husband's eyes, and at the woman who had carried a life with grace, and I said "no" out loud to that word. I put it in the bowl. The fire, small and sane, did its work. We stood until the paper became ash, and the ash became a gray that did not try to turn back into white. We watched, not like a show, like a witness, like people at a river watching a tree float past and out of their story. The oak watched too, and did not give an opinion. When the fire quieted, we let it rest. I brought out marshmallows because I had promised, and because ritual needs sweetness too. The kids laughed at how the marshmallows caught quick and then went soft. Theo smiled in a way that made my eyes sting. Ethan took a step toward the bowl with his hands open. "I am sorry," he said. He did not add a speech. "Good." I nodded. Saturday is for burning. Monday is for paper. We will go to the lawyer at 10. We will make a schedule. We will sign what we can sign in this season. We will keep the house steady. We will keep the kids steady. He nodded. "Okay," he said again, like he had decided this was the only sentence left to him that had any dignity. Mara handed me a copy of the rent contract. "This is for your binder," she said, "so no one can say later that the air we are breathing now is not real." Our fingers touched. Two women on either side of a river building a bridge using the wood that used to be furniture in a room neither of us can live in anymore. When they left, Mrs. Chang lifted her broom in a small salute. Mr. Lopez gave me a grate from his fence vine, a silly, perfect thing to do. Nadia put the hose on its hook and kissed my cheek. Ritual done. Work still there. You know where to begin. I washed the mugs. The water ran warm, my hands colder than I expected. I placed the cup I had used back on the shelf. I set the bowl outside to cool. The ash looked like scribbles the kids make in black crayon before they learn to keep a line steady. I would scatter it in the morning into the compost where old things become good for new roots. It felt right. I sat with my notebook. I made the 4 columns I use when I need the day to be honest to me. I saw 2 families in a garden, paper turning to ash, a boy smiling at a marshmallow, my neighbors standing like a fence made of kindness. I heard no shouting, 1 apology, my own voice saying no to a word that sells things. I felt tired and strong, sad and clean. I will do. Lawyer Monday, counselor Tuesday, school Wednesday. Keys stay on my hook. Beds stay in their rooms. House stays itself. In bed that night, the rain started again. the soft kind that rinses instead of scours. The window was open a finger's width. The rosemary held its shape in the dark. My children made those small sleep sounds that tell a mother nothing awful is happening. I placed my hand on my chest and said, 3 words I could keep. Right now, safe. Sunday, church was a walk and a poem at the kitchen table. I read one aloud while the kettle hummed. Let the old stories burn, make compost, plant new seeds. It was not a very good poem. It told the truth anyway. Monday morning, the door made its soft click behind us when we left for school. I watched them walk to the gate with their backpacks and their brave shoulders. I put the binder in my bag and walked to the lawyer with my head up. I met him there. He looked like a person who had slept. He looked like a person who knew what he had lit and what he had burned, and that he would spend a long time learning how to build anything without matches. We signed the temporary house agreement. We wrote a calm schedule with dinners that did not mess with bedtime. We asked for a mediator. We set a date for him to tell the kids the truth they could carry with the counselor in the room to guide his mouth. We asked for child support. We asked to keep the house. We did not ask for permission to be kind. Outside the bakery, the smell of sugar met the smell of rain. I stood under the awning for a second with the folder under my arm. The street shone. The day felt like a bowl you can put your hands around. I went home and watered the rosemary because it is my way to bless a thing twice.
The fire had cooled to ash. I lifted the bowl and scattered the gray into the compost with my palm, a quiet, clean motion. The ash made a pale cloud that rose and disappeared. I turned the compost with the old fork we keep by the shed. Worms moved in slow, certain lines. I thought, as I always do when I see them, of how small work makes a whole garden. Inside, the house smelt like wet and clean and tea. I put the hose back neatly and the sand bucket under the bench. I folded the good napkins. I put the index cards that had not been used into a drawer, empty now in that corner, to remind me that old words do not get new rooms. At 4, Mara texted, "Thank you." I wrote back, "You're welcome." Later, Theo sent, through her, the photo of a perfect marshmallow, gold and proud, and 3 purple hearts. I smiled. I put my phone down on the counter where it belongs in my house, face down so the kettle gets more attention. There is always more paper, more meetings, more reminding myself to be a person who uses plain words and not sharp ones. But that evening, I let the ritual be enough for one day. I made soup because it was Monday and I needed something to stand on that was not a plan and not a law. I called my mother and told her a version she could carry. "I am proud of you," she said, "for burning lies and not bridges." When the door clicked softly that night, the house felt like a friend, not a witness. The kids slept. The rain ran down the glass in lines that looked like writing. I breathed like a person who had done a brave thing without breaking the dishes. I wrote the word light on a scrap of paper and set it in the ring dish, a silly new ritual that made me smile. I let my eyes close. I told my heart, "You did fine."
On Monday, after the lawyer and the bakery smell, I walked home with the folder under my arm. The street shone.
The sky was the kind of clear that makes everything look like it has a good edge. I put the documents on the table and made tea. The kettle hummed. The house felt like it had learned a new posture, shoulders back, feet under it. At 4, the doorbell did not ring because he knows better than to make noise when there is no reason. Ethan stood on the mat with a small bag and a face that looked like a person had said his name and he knew he had to answer. He handed me his key without my asking. It lay in my palm like a small, cool truth. I placed it in the ring dish with mine for a minute and then took mine back and set his aside. "I will come for my things on Friday," he said. "Boxes, clothes, books. I won't make a ceremony out of it." "Good," I said. "Keys in the dish when you leave." He nodded. We sat at the table and looked at the schedule the lawyer had typed for us, and we had both signed. Tuesday dinner, Thursday dinner, Saturday park. He could take them to the pizza place and bring them back by 7:30. Sunday was mine. No overnights yet. Calm handoffs. No new people at the door. He traced his finger under calm handoffs, like he was learning a new word in a language he should have been speaking all along. "Tomorrow," I said, "we will tell them together with the counselor. You will speak. You will tell the truth they can hold. Short words, no heavy bags. If you look at me, I will nod when you're being useful." He half smiled at that, the old ghost of humor that used to make our breakfast better, showing up for a second and then remembering it was not needed right now. The next day, we sat on a small couch in a room with a plant that had been cut back and come back fuller. The counselor had a voice like a warm blanket. She explained our job like she had done it before. Speak to the age in front of you. Tell the truth in simple pieces. Make a plan. Leave the rest in this room. Sophie and Ben sat with their feet a little too far off the floor. Ethan looked at our children. He did not look at me. Good. He said, "I made mistakes. I told lies. Grown-up lies. I am sorry. This is my fault. You did nothing wrong. We will be a 2-house family for some things. You will sleep at home. I will eat dinner with you on Tuesdays and Thursdays and sit with you at the park on Saturdays. I love you." The counselor nodded in that small way that means that fits in their hands. Sophie looked at him, at me, at the plant, and then said, "Will we still dance to our song on Fridays?" He swallowed. "With me, not now. With Mom, yes." Ben asked if the park had the better swings. "It does," the counselor lied with purpose, and we all laughed, and it fixed something right there in the middle of the room. We drove home without the radio. The street looked like itself. The rosemary leaned toward the window as if it were checking whether we still knew our own names. We did. On Friday, he came with boxes and a friend who did not step inside. He took shirts, a pair of boots, the pan he loves, a photo from college. I packed a small box I had labeled for dads, pajamas for each child, a toothbrush with a blue stripe, a silly card game. He stood at the doorway with the box in his arms and looked at it like a person who had not expected kindness and did not know where to put it. "Thank you," he said. "Use it," I said. He put his key in the dish. The sound was small, like a coin. He looked at the doorframe the way people look at trees they carved initials into when they were young. He put his palm against the wood and said, "Quiet. Thank you for keeping us alive." He stepped out. The door closed with its soft click. The house breathed. That afternoon, I changed the lock. Not with anger, with care. I called Mr. Lopez to stand with me because he knows about doors
and it feels safer to have a neighbor nearby when you take out the old and put in the new. He arrived with a small toolbox and a bottle of cold water. He said, "This is a good lock," holding up the new one. "Listen." He showed me how to set the plate so the latch would glide. "Rub a little wax on it after," he said. "Keeps it quiet." We moved like two people in a kitchen fixing a drawer. When I turned the knob and heard the new sound, crisp, clean, still gentle, I felt something in my chest answer. I texted Mara. "New lock, new schedule. Kids okay today?" She wrote back, "Theo asked if he could come to the park Saturday. We will be there." Then, after a minute, "Thank you for letting him be near a fire that was for truth and not for punishment." I wrote, "We will keep using it for the right things." We both knew we were talking about more than the fire bowl. The turning point for us came that next evening in the garden, without any flame. Ethan arrived to pick the kids up for pizza. He stood on the mat like a person who knows the new rule of a house and respects it. He looked in at the table, at the binder on the shelf, at the sprig of rosemary in the jar by the sink. He cleared his throat. "I wrote something," he said, holding up a sheet of paper that had the careful look of a thing a man has tried to put his heart into without spilling it everywhere. "It isn't for them, it's for you, and for her, and for me to stop hiding behind my own story." I took it and walked with him to the garden because the kitchen belongs to the kids and to the binder and knives and good bread, and this had a different shape. The air was clean in a way that felt like it had been washed twice. The oak stood like a good witness. He read in a voice that was not soft or dramatic, just true. "I made 2 lives out of 1 because I wanted to be adored all the time. I told myself I was a good man who made a complicated choice. I lied. To both of you. To myself. I used words like after to buy time. I used your kindness, Nora, and your trust, Mara, like tools I did not have to earn. I am not asking to be forgiven today. I am asking to be seen. I will pay what I owe. I will not ask either home to carry my loneliness. I will not tell our children stories that put weight on their backs. I will not take the house from the people who kept it. I will not call what I did love. I will call it running. I am done running." He handed me a copy. He handed one to Mara when she came with Theo and stood just inside the gate. She put the paper in her bag without reading it there, because some things deserve a chair and a cup of tea and a door that closes behind you and a moment where you say, "Okay," before you let your eyes do the work. "Saturday," I said, because we had agreed on Saturday as the day we do brave things now. "After the park, you will return the extra phone. You will hand me the spare key to her place you hid in your car. You will show me the accounts I circled in my binder. You will sit with me at the bank and ask them to put alerts on transactions that break our plan. You will sign the temporary order without a sigh." He will. No sigh. In the days that followed, we did those things. The bank added alerts. He moved out the last of his books. He returned the extra phone, set it on the table, and did not touch it again. He opened the 2 accounts, and we watched the numbers like adults. We wrapped the spare key to Mara's in a paper towel and placed it in the folder marked "Not Ours," a small piece of theater to make a point we all agreed on: no more hidden doors. We told his mother. She cried into her cardigan and held me, and then held Mara, and then reached for Theo's face and said, "You are not a secret. with a quiet that made me love her in a new way. She sat at my table and told Ethan what his father had done to her 40 years ago and how she had made a garden anyway. She said, "You will do better." It did not sound like a curse. It sounded like an assignment.
Mara and I sat on the steps one evening while the kids made a fort on the lawn with 2 chairs and a blanket and too much hope that it would stay. "I don't want to be your friend," she said gently. "I don't need that. I need us to be good women near each other." "I can do that," I said. We watched Theo teach Ben how to roast a marshmallow without turning it into a torch. We watched Sophie tell them both how to blow out smoke if it catches. Small, ordinary learning things. A week after the fire, the counselor suggested we write down our house rules and tape them by the door. "Houses like to see themselves," she said. I wrote, "Calm handoffs, no adult talk in front of kids, door stays gentle, keys on hook, 1 key per person, window open a finger's width for air, not for secrets, burn lies, not people, marshmallows after." The kids laughed at the last line. Good. Laughter is glue. We changed the Wi-Fi password, not to punish, but to remind ourselves life has new words now. I put the new password in the binder under house and told the kids where it lived. They were impressed by the idea that you can put a password in a book. I said, "You can put anything there if you write it down." We went to the mediator and sat in 2 chairs, not touching, and agreed on the boring things that keep homes from becoming wreckage. School pickups, holidays, 2 sets of toothbrushes. He signed without rolling his eyes. He looked at me when the mediator asked what he was giving up, and he said, "The right to knock whenever I feel sad." I almost said thank you. I did not. The mediator smiled into her notes. In that slow week, there was a task I'd been avoiding that turned out to be the true hinge. I had to call the mortgage company and say, "It's me now. He is cooperative. We will refinance in a year. He will pay his part until then. Put my voice at the top of the file." The woman on the line had a headset and a kindness that felt like she had been the person on the other end for a lot of kitchens like mine. "We'll note it," she said. "Call me if you hit a bump." I wrote her name in my binder and drew a small heart next to it like a teenager. Paper can make you sentimental when it holds. That Sunday night, when the kids were asleep, I walked into the garden again. The fire bowl was clean. I had washed it with water, then dried it in the sun like any pan I loved. I placed his written confession, the copy he had given me that I had not decided what to do with, into the bowl. I did not light it. Not everything has to burn. Some things have to sit and become part of the house slowly, the way a mark on a table becomes part of the table story. I put a sprig of rosemary next to it. Silly, maybe, too much. But it made me feel like I was saying, grow through this. Then came the moment that moved us from one life to the next, like a slow door opening without a squeak. The kids were at the table drawing. The house smelled of lemon and tea. The window was open a finger's width, and Ethan came to the door for a calm handoff. He did not step in. He looked at the schedule posted by the door and then at me. "I signed the quitclaim," he said. His voice was level. "At the lawyer's. It puts the house in your name when we refinance. We can record it then. I don't want this building to be a question anymore. It should be where they sleep. It should be yours to keep that for them." He handed me the envelope. I felt the weight like a small animal in my hand. Alive, decent, necessary. I opened it at the table with my hands clean because my mother would have told me to, and because I wanted to feel right holding it.
His signature was there, crisp. The notary stamp, a soft thump in my memory, sat like a small moon. I breathed. The door made a quieter sound than usual when I closed it behind him. The house felt like it had said, I know who I belong to. We celebrated with pancakes for dinner because that is how we mark everything in this house, good and bad, flour and a griddle, and small hands cracking eggs they shouldn't crack, and laughter when shells get in. Sophie flipped the small ones. Ben ate 3 and declared a new personal record. I added blueberries because we own it now. It felt that way. I texted Mara. He signed the quitclaim. She wrote, good. Then, after a minute, we told Theo, that part. He asked if your house smelled like pancakes. I told him sometimes it does. I sent back a photo of 3 plates with round, imperfect circles and syrup that got everywhere. She sent a photo of Theo with a smile that was familiar and new. 2 kids living in 2 kitchens where the grown-ups were turning into people who do not set fires they can't put out. That week, my mother came over with a quilt and a bag of groceries squeezed into one arm and 2 opinions she had the good sense not to say out loud. She touched the new lock and nodded. It's a good lock, she said, as if locks were people. She put the quilt on the back of the couch for tired days. We stood at the sink. The window was open. The air was good. You were brave, she said finally. Not loud, brave. The kids started calling Tuesdays and Thursdays pizza nights, even if they ate pasta or tacos, because names stick when you make them simple. I kept soup on Wednesdays because some traditions are medicine. I went to therapy on Thursdays while they were out, and the therapist asked me to put my hand on my chest and say, I am a woman who keeps a house steady under rain. It felt silly. I did it. It helped. When I look back now, the turning point was not the fire bowl, though I will always be grateful for how the paper became ash and the smoke went thin. It was not the signature, though I slept deeper that night than I had in months. It was the combination of small, exact things that made a hinge out of a week. Keys in the dish, lock changed with a neighbor, simple schedule, calm handoff, a letter read without drama, a signature on a quitclaim, an honest sentence to children in a room with a plant trying its best. It was the moment I heard the door click softly behind the last box and felt the house say, good. I stood in the garden again, late, alone, and thought, I did not burn a man. I burned lies. I did not throw anyone into the dark. I opened a window and let bad air out. I planted rosemary and watered it. I recorded names on paper and then let the day be a day. I can keep doing this. I will.
The first week after the fire felt different in the small ways that matter. The kettle hummed, the house hummed back. The door made its soft click and didn't sound like a question anymore. The rosemary by the window stood steady. I set the binder on the shelf and put a small sprig of green in the ring dish just because I could. We kept to the schedule like it was a rope across a river. Tuesday dinner, Thursday dinner, Saturday park. He texted before he rang. He stood on the mat. He left on time. On Wednesday, I made soup and we ate it with bread and laughter that came from a good place, not a nervous one. The kids started calling Tuesday and Thursday pizza nights, even when they ate tacos, because names help children hold a day. I met with the school counselor. The room had a rug with little squares that looked like windows in a tiny town. She listened while I talked. We told them with the counselor, I said. We're keeping a steady map. They're still sleeping. She smiled the way people do when they want to bless a simple thing. "You're doing the right kind of quiet," she said. "We'll check in with them in the library on Friday. No big talk, a puzzle and a question." At therapy, I sat in a chair and let my shoulders drop, the way you do when a person who knows how to help says, "You can put some of it here." I told her about the fire, about the paper turning into gray you could touch and not be burned by. "Rituals teach your body," she said. "They give it a file for this. Keep giving it files." She asked me to put my hand on my chest and say, "I am a woman who keeps a house steady under rain." It felt silly, and then it felt like permission. At the bank, we put alerts on the accounts that used to be shadows. The woman on the line asked for my name and then asked me to repeat it slowly. "Got it," she said. "You call me if anything rummages through your kitchen at night." I laughed, and the sound surprised me in a good way. The house changed with me. I took down the picture over the couch that did not feel like us anymore and hung the quilt my mother brought. It looked like a promise even when the room was empty. I scrubbed the sink with lemon and thought of Mara's good hands on paper and the way Theo had asked about marshmallows, like it was okay to want sweetness in the middle of the hard part. I planted a small lavender next to the rosemary in a clay pot and told it, "You are welcome." It didn't answer, but it leaned. Mara and I stayed kind in a way that didn't ask more than we could give. Texts. "Park at 4? He has a cold, we'll keep it short. Project due Wednesday. Poster board?" She sent a picture of Theo's smile in front of a science fair board that said, "Worms make soil." I sent a picture of Ben's grin behind a tower of blocks that kept falling and kept being rebuilt. We did not braid our lives. We let them run alongside, like two small creeks that feed a bigger river without arguing about the rocks. His mother came over with a bag of groceries and a pair of eyes that had learned how to carry love across difficult rooms. She brought too many apples and 2 kinds of cheese because she never knows what to bring and likes to overdo it when she's nervous. She hugged me at the door. "You didn't slam it," she said into my hair. "Thank you." Then she hugged Mara on the porch and bent to Theo and said, "You are not a secret." The way the day we burned the paper made it possible for her to say it out loud. The weekends taught us how to be ordinary again. Saturday at the park, the kids ran to the big tree with too much hope for a fort, and we let them. Theo taught Ben how to roast a marshmallow without turning it into coal. Sophie showed them both how to blow gently when the sugar caught. Ethan sat on a bench and watched them, hands quiet, and did not make promises. He brought orange slices the next week without being asked. The sound of the 3 kids laughing together, for the first time and then again, sat down in my chest and decided to live there without asking for permission. I kept the whiteboard by the door with our house rules in plain letters. Calm handoffs, no adult talk in front of kids, door stays gentle. 1 key per person, keys on hook. Window open a finger's width for air, not secrets. Burn lies, not people. Marshmallows after. Sophie added a crooked heart next to the last line, then drew a stick figure with a cape. Theo, careful, shy, took a dry erase marker one afternoon and wrote very small, "Thank you," under the rules. He erased it quickly, like a boy who didn't want to be caught showing his inside. I pretended not to see. I did see, and it warmed me for hours. There were hard moments too, there always are. On a Thursday, a commercial for airfare to a city I recognized from a receipt flashed across the TV. And for a second, my breath went thin. I stood by the sink, opened the window a finger's width, and let air do what air does. That night, after the kids were asleep, I wrote 3 cards for the fire bowl with my own small lies. I should have seen it. It was my fault for being steady. Love keeps people from doing wrong. I went outside under the oak, lit the corner of each, and watched them go from white to gray to gone. It helped. I slept. Paper kept saving me in quiet ways. The lawyer filed our temporary orders. The mediator scheduled us for next steps. We met our mortgage banker over the phone, and she told me what we needed to refine in a year. A little more income proof, a letter from him, payments on time. She said, "You're on track." I wrote "on time" next to the mortgage line each month, and the small act steadied me more than I expected. It's a funny thing how writing 2 words with a pen can keep a body from spinning. He joined a father's group at the community center on Tuesday nights because he said he would, and because the counselor said words in a circle where other men tell the truth could teach his mouth how to move better. He did not bring me his epiphanies. He brought the kids home by 7:30. That was the right size for us right now.
We signed the divorce papers 6 months later in an office that smelled like coffee and paper and a little like lemon, which made me smile. We did it quietly, without speeches. We walked out into a day that had the decency to be kind. I went to the bakery and bought a slice of lemon cake and took it home to our kitchen. I ate it at the table, with the window open, and told the house we did it. It didn't answer, but the light looked good on the wood. The kids adjusted in ways that reminded me children are made for movement if the floor beneath them is steady. Sophie made a Friday dance that changed to a new song. Ben asked if he could start a Saturday pancake off and declared himself the winner every time. Theo brought a joke book one weekend and read jokes so bad they became good. "What do you call cheese that isn't yours?" he asked, too loud. "Nacho cheese." The 3 of them laughed like they had invented the sound. Mara and I shared information the way you pass salt across a table. Practical, polite. "Late practice," I texted. "He'll drop him at your gate at 6. "Science museum Sunday?" she replied. "Yes," I wrote. When Theo won a small medal in class for most helpful, she sent a photo without commentary. When Sophie read a whole book in 2 days, I sent one back. We didn't add hearts every time. We didn't need to. A little green checkmark, a got it, a thanks, and the world kept turning. Ethan learned to be dependable in small ways. He showed up to conferences and sat in small chairs again, nodding, not making anything about him. He answered the kids' questions without fog or detour. "Will you marry again?" Sophie asked. And he said, "Not this year," and left it there, which is a sign a man has learned how to keep the sky from falling on a child's head. There were days I felt anger tap my door like rain that wanted to be a storm. The day I found the extra gym bag I had kept on a high shelf in the garage, for no good reason, I sat on the step with it in my lap and let my hands shake. Then I opened it. There were only old socks and a receipt crumbled into a ball like it had been hiding. I threw both away. I washed my hands. I stood at the sink and said, "That is done." Saying it out loud made the house feel like it had heard me agree with myself. Forgiveness came in thin threads, not in a parade. The therapist told me, "You can forgive a piece without forgiving the whole. You can forgive for yourself, not as a welcome mat, but as a way to set down a sack no one else is carrying for you." I wrote, "Set down the sack" on a sticky note and put it inside the cabinet by the mugs. Every morning when I reach for the blue one, I see it. Some mornings I take it down and put it in my pocket. It helps. One evening, the door clicked softly and Ethan stood on the mat for a handoff. He looked at me as if he wanted a word. "I'm grateful," he said, voice low, not asking to come inside, "for how you've kept this home." I nodded. "Do your part," I said. He did that night. He took them to the park, brought them back in time, texted home when the door closed. Sometimes gratitude is a sentence, not a speech. Neighbors kept showing up in their neighbor ways. Mrs. Chang brought oranges when the light looked tired. Mr. Lopez taught me how to rub real wax on the new lock so it would keep its quiet. Nadia sat at my table on a Tuesday when the kids were out and didn't make me make a point out of anything.
We ate the lemon bars she always manages to produce, and we looked at the fire bowl like a friend we had shared. The compost where the ashes went did its work. In spring, the tomatoes took, not the joke kind that falls over, the steady kind that makes small, sweet fruit you can eat over the sink with a little salt. Sophie declared herself in charge of the basil. Ben declared himself king of the hose and watered the rosemary a little too much. I said, she forgives. And the plant did. On the 1-year mark, the refinance was approved. The banker called with the same kind voice she had used when she told me to keep the payments on time. She said, "It's done. The title is yours. We'll record it this afternoon." I stood at the kitchen sink with my hand on the cool edge and cried the kind of tears that don't scare children. I called my mother. She cried, then put soup on and brought it over because sometimes celebrations look like supper. We marked the day with pancakes for dinner and a tiny string of lights along the kitchen window. The door made its soft click. The house felt proud. I put the stamped deed in the binder under House on top of the copy of the quitclaim and the temporary orders and the notes from the mediator. I wrote "on time" one more time and then wrote "hours" in my neat hand. It looked good there. I didn't see him anymore when I looked at the fire bowl or the door or the sink. I saw the work of a woman who decided not to break her own dishes just because someone else had broken a promise. I saw a garden that had learned to take old things and make them useful. I saw children who knew their beds were their beds and their door would always make a kind sound when it closed. Mara and I met at the park one evening with both boys and sat on the bench while they made a fort with the last light. She didn't make it a talk. She just said, "We've done enough for today," when the boys wanted to pack it up and bring it home. I said, "We'll try again next time." And we smiled like women who finally had enough of a shared language to say the right things with very few words. I kept my little list taped inside the cabinet next to the mugs, the one that tells me what to do when the morning feels like paper that might tear. Tell the truth in daylight, start with tea, keep routines, write it down, open the window a finger's width, burn what needs burning, paper only.
Forgive in threads. Ask for help. No shouting. No secrets. Marshmallows after. There were nights the kids fell asleep on the couch under my mother's quilt, sticky with syrup from a late pancake. I lifted them, felt their small weight that still surprises me, and put them in their beds. The door made its soft click. The rosemary stood guard by the window. The house breathed. I breathed. We had a storm once, a real one with wind that practiced throwing things. The power went out for 2 hours. We lit candles and ate cold soup and told a story we all knew by heart now. There was a day we put words that hurt into a small, safe fire and let them become something else. Sophie added, "Then we made s'mores," because she is a child and knows that stories need kindness at the end. Ben said, "Then we went to bed in our own beds." And I thought, that is the point of everything. There is no end to paperwork, to emails, to the work of being decent and firm in a world that likes the opposite. But a year after the knock at my door, my house felt like itself. My children laughed like the sound didn't have to check who was listening. The fire bowl stayed cold most days, which is what a good fire bowl should do. The binder got heavier and friendlier, like a cookbook that has seen a lot of soup. Forgiveness stands in my kitchen like a cat that comes and goes. I do not chase it. I leave the window a finger's width and it finds its way. Some days I offer it a saucer, some days I nod. It is enough. If you had walked into my kitchen last week, you would have seen light on the table, a sprig of rosemary in a jar, a whiteboard with our rules, and 2 mugs on the counter. Blue for me, green for the friend who was on her way.
You would have smelled tea and pancakes and a little lemon. You would have heard the door click and the children laugh, and maybe the soft sound of a woman saying thank you to a house that learned to hold the truth without breaking. I didn't burn my life down. I burned his lies in front of us all, and then watered the rosemary. I kept the beds where they belong. I asked for help. I made soup. I wrote words in a binder. I opened a window. I said no when I needed to. I let the air in. I let the day end.
Some mornings still begin with rain. It taps the kitchen window in that soft way, as if it remembers who lives here. The kettle hums. The rosemary leans toward the glass and then stands back up, brave and green. I open the window a finger's width and let the good air in. Our house feels like itself again. Not the same as before. Houses keep what happens in them, but kind. The door makes its quiet click at night, a sound that means safe and not wait. The binder sits on the shelf, a little worn at the edges, a book that helped hold us. The ring dish has a small sprig of rosemary in it and a folded paper that says light, because it makes me smile to see it when I reach for my keys. We kept the simple things that saved us: soup on Wednesdays, pancakes for endings and beginnings, a whiteboard by the door with our house rules in plain words, calm handoffs, no adult talk in front of kids, window open for air, not secrets, burn lies, not people, marshmallows after. The words look almost silly until a hard day comes and you are glad to read your own handwriting. Tuesdays and Thursdays are still pizza nights, even when they are tacos. Saturdays smell like grass and park air. The kids know their beds are their beds. They know the door will close the same way, the gentle way, even if rain taps or wind pushes. They know their mother stands in the kitchen with tea when mornings feel heavy, and that steady can hold a whole day. Mara and I stayed side by side without forcing more. We passed facts back and forth like salt at a table. Project due Wednesday. Late practice, gate at 6. Science museum? Yes. Theo's laugh has become part of the park sound for us. He still writes thank you in small ways, quick and shy, and erases it. I still see it. It still warms me. Ethan does his part. He shows up on time. He leaves on time. He sits in small chairs at school like the father of 2 children who are not there to carry his weight. He learned to speak in short truths and then stop. He does not knock when he is lonely. He learned to take that to a room where other men use simple words and a circle can hold them. I don't bless or curse his steps. I keep my door gentle and my rules clear. My neighbors kept being neighbors. Mrs. Chang brings oranges when the light looks tired. Mr. Lopez checks the lock with a small nod, the way men who know wood and doors show love without speeches. Nadia comes on a Tuesday sometimes, and we sit with lemon bars and no big talk. Just 2 women in a kitchen that made it through. My mother's quilt lives on the back of the couch. We pull it up on our laps and it smells like soap and safety. I go back to small, steady lessons when my chest tightens. Start with tea. Tell the truth in daylight. Keep routines. Write it down. Open the window a finger's width. Ask for help. Forgive in threads. It is not a grand plan. It is a way to keep a house and a heart. Sometimes I still visit the fire bowl. Most days it stays cold, the way a good fire bowl should be. On hard evenings, I write a new card when a small lie sneaks back into my mouth. You should have seen it. You can fix everyone. It was nothing. And I burn it under the oak. The smoke goes thin. The air feels better. I sleep. If you walked into my kitchen now, you would not see a grand story. You would see light on the table. 2 mugs, blue for me, green for a friend, a sprig of rosemary in a jar, a binder that looks like a cookbook, children's drawings on the fridge, 3 stick figures holding hands, a 4th near the park with a ball, a whiteboard with rules that end in marshmallows after. You would hear the door's soft click, the kettle's hum, and a small laugh when a pancake lands the wrong way up. I am not the woman who stood in a porch and poured tea for strangers with a folder and a boy I had never met. I am steadier now, softer, stronger in the quiet way. I didn't burn my life down. I burned his lies with care, outside, under sky, with a hose and a neighbor and a rule about no shouting. Then I watered the rosemary and kept the beds where they belong. I asked for help. I held the paper. I opened a window. I let the day end. Here is what I learned, and I keep it taped inside the cabinet where the mugs live. You can fight for truth without breaking your own dishes. You can make a plan and still be kind. You can keep children safe with steady maps and simple words. You can forgive in threads and still keep your lock firm. You can stand in your kitchen, even after, and know who you are. On the first big rain of spring, I stood at the sink and watched the drop stitch silver lines on the glass. I opened the window the small way. The rosemary leaned in, stubborn and brave. The kettle clicked off. The house breathed. I whispered, "Thank you," to the room that learned to hold the truth without breaking, to the neighbors who stood nearby, to the girl inside me who wanted a soft life and found a strong one, to the woman I am now. Then I turned from the window, poured tea, and went on with my day.